Hello, Vinyl community. Hi, I hope everybody's doing really, really well out there. It's Rob back for a roundup video, and I've had the last couple of days off work, as I mentioned before. Yesterday, I went to Ben's because obviously the non-essential shops are opening again. So fantastic SJ Records in Stratford on Avon. Yeah, and got a nice stack to show. Yeah, fabulous to be back thumbing through records again. Both Ben and his dad, Scott, were in Fine Fettle, and it was great catching up. And I believe I mean, I was there for the most of the morning and the early part of the afternoon, and had a really good steady stream of customers in, people spending money, which is just great to see, because they're a fine, independent record record retailer, and yeah, they deserve all the success that they can get. So yeah, always happy to patronize their shop. And so I'm going to leave those aside for a minute, and show this, because I was actually going to do this video in two parts, but then I just thought, well, I'm back at work tomorrow. I ain't going to get an opportunity to do it to the weekend, so I just thought, what the hell, I'll just blast through them and try and get them all shown. So I have got an awful lot to show, so I probably won't talk excuse me, too much about them. I know I always say that and end up probably going over, but I really don't want to do that because, as I say, I've only got 30 minutes of video, so I'm going to try and breeze through these guys. So apologies if I'm going a bit quick, but I do have a lot to show. So okay, so I'm gonna first of all just catch up with all my online stuff. So this is Amazon Marketplace, etc. And these are obviously mainly, I think exclusively reissues that are on my want list. Just ones that are inordinately expensive and you never see in the wild, or I don't tend to. So I thought, what the hell, I'll pick them up. Also, a couple of CDs as well. So okay, so in fact, I'm going to start with I'll start with the CDs. So the first one is an artist that I showed his second album last year, and this is a this is a CD version of his debut album on Immediate Records, and that's Duncan Brown and Give Me Take You. So this is Duncan Brown. He's English sort of Baroque classical guitar player, songwriter, very unique style, sort of enunciates very clearly when he sings, obviously very educated. His partner, which from the notes I believe was somebody he'd been to college with, wrote the lyrics, and was a really accomplished lyricist. And obviously they came to the attention of Andrew Loog Oldham, the Stones manager, who kind of took them under the wing, and they recorded this album in 1968. Unfortunately, it was quite rushed apparently towards the end because they were fast running out of budget. I mean, there's like beautiful Baroque sort of arrangements on this. It's sort of very close mic'd on his voice, very intimate. Wonderful songs. Sort of, if you're not familiar with this, if you can imagine, it's in the vein of kind of that sort of very English Baroque pop, like Odyssey and Oracle, Zombies. Well worth getting this. This was actually a second-hand copy with bonus tracks. That was, I think I paid about £5 for it. So well happy to get it. Original copies of this are incredibly hard to find, and I believe can go for upwards of about £1,000. So but I'd love to get a reissue. If it was reissued on vinyl, snap it up immediately. So yeah, really, really pleased to get that. Okay, and the next one is a Canadian guitarist who I've admired for many years. Saw him live with supporting Suzanne Vega in the mid-80s, and he just absolutely just blew her off the stage as far as I was concerned. And this is his debut album, which sadly I've not been able to find. I've looked for it for years. I've never found it on vinyl, but fortunately I found a CD copy, and this is Michael Hedges, and this is his debut album, Breakfast in the Field, from 1981. So yeah, I mean, what can you say about Michael Hedges? He's just an incredible guitar player, or was. Sadly died in a car accident in the 1990s. Just a huge loss to music. So yeah, very, very grateful that I got to see him live. And he's just a force of nature. He's playing a harp guitar, just weirdest tunings, but very melodic, incredible rhythms, jazzy, folky, just throws everything into the mix, and he doesn't sound like anybody else. I think David Crosby cited him as one of the best guitarists he'd heard in over 20 years. Fantastic, you know. And yeah, this is a great album. I've also got Aerial Boundaries ordered as well, because I mean, these Windham Hill records you just can't find for love nor money on vinyl. Back in the day, in the 80s, you used to find them all the time. I've got George Winston albums and so on, you know, when they were first issued, and then they just disappeared, and I just never see them now. So, but this is I was very happy to get this. I think this was like £4, and it was brand new. So and it sounds fantastic. So yeah, really happy to get that. Okay, so moving on with the vinyl. As I say, these are all reissues, so all ones on my want list. First off, I have seen an original copy of this at a record fair, but it was beaten up, and the guy wanted £30 for it. I thought it was highly unlikely that anytime soon I was going to find one, so I pulled the trigger on a reissue. This is Scott 3, so his third solo album. Yeah, it's not as good as Scott 4, which is just absolutely sublime, magnificent, but it's pretty bloody good. It's comes at quite a close second for me. Yeah, just wonderfully beautiful, evocative, sort of ethereal in places. I love the opening track, It's Raining Today. Just beautiful with those strings, and it just kind of just hangs there. Wonderful. Goes into the fantastic Copenhagen, 30th century man with that kind of acoustic vibe. Really excellent stuff. But you know, I'm a huge Scott Walker fan, and if you love his voice, there's very little that he does that doesn't inspire, and you know, just blow you away. So fantastic. Yeah, and like Scott 4, that's a wonderful reissue. And I've been moaning about modern reissues, but that's an exception to the rule. That one's pretty good. So this is one that Alan Static Traveller, I saw him show a couple of years ago, and I streamed it and quite liked it, forgot all about it. And then the other day he was pulling records from his shelf, and I was kind of watching really attentively, because he obviously always shows some really great stuff. And he pulled this, and this is Azimuth. So who are Azimuth? Okay, well, they're sort of Brazilian jazz, samba, slightly psych tinged. I know they always like to use that word, don't they? But yeah, it's kind of more laid back than I remember it, but incredibly well recorded and engineered. I mean, it's just phenomenal. I mean, this is obviously a reissue, because I think originals are just impossible to find. So yeah, this is their debut from 1974. Or I think it says it was recorded in 74, 75. So mid 70s. But yeah, it's definitely cited as their as their best. And yeah, it's a nice listen. There's a couple of kind of funky upbeat numbers on there, but it's largely quite kind of laid back, particularly the opening track. The kind of reverby vocals, and as I say, just wonderfully recorded. So probably a great album to use as a test record if you were trying out a sort of high end system, or certainly a hi-fi system that's a lot better than my setup. But there you go. So okay, moving along. When I was in Sweden a long time ago, I lived with a guy for a while who was a huge reggae fan, and when he was at work during the day, I'd sort of spend most of the day playing, sort of cherry picking and just picking stuff out from his record collection. And this was one I really liked, and played a lot. This is Burning Spears' third album, I believe, called Marcus Garvey. Yeah, Winston Rodney, fantastic roots reggae album. Obviously, sort of heavily sort of marked historically with the guy Marcus Garvey. So a lot of sort of historical references in there, for sort of Jamaican culture and so on. But it's just beautiful songwriting, fantastic, hooks in there. Slavery Days, Tradition, the song of Marcus Garvey, wonderful, just wonderfully produced as well, and just a fantastic reggae album, or just a great album in its own right. Anyway, whatever your punch on for music, really. So yeah, fabulous. Fabulous stuff. And I believe there's an album called Garvey's Ghost, which is a dub version of this, which I've not heard, but I'd like to get a copy of that as well sometime. So, okay, so this was one that was long overdue, and yeah, being a big fan of this guy, I was ashamed to say that I've never got a copy, but you can just never find an original of this in the wild, because it's his probably most critically acclaimed album. This is Roy Harper and Stormcock. So this is his 1971 release. Yeah, just the 4 songs on this, but just, yeah, breathtaking, poetic lyrics, just wonderfully conceived, atmospheric. The highlight for me is The Same Old Rock, which is track 2 on side 1, where you've got Jimmy Page accompanying on guitar. Roy Harper's playing the 12 string. Jimmy Page, actually interesting, in those days, for contractual reasons, they'd have to give themselves pseudonyms. So Jimmy's here credited as S. Flavius Mercurius on lead guitar, which is always amusing. So, but yeah, a wonderful album. Not my favourite of his, but it's definitely up there with one of his best. And yeah. Obviously highly recommended, but then any of his late 60s, 70s output is worth always worth investigating. Okay, so moving swiftly on, because we're up to 14 minutes already. Picked this up, Yada Yada, Who, a quick one. Fantastic. I think this is where Townsend's sort of songwriting really took off. Love all the tracks on this. Obviously, you've got the humour of Boris the Spider from John Entwistle, which is always fun. But yeah, the highlight is, of course, the last track, the quick one while he's away, the little mini opera. Just fantastic. Just lyrically, all the music, the parts that just roll into one another. I guess a precursor for things to come with Tommy and sort of conceptualizing their music. Yeah, just amazing. And this sounds really, really good. This is a mono reproduction. So yeah, I've had a few reissues, and to be honest, the mono ones usually sound better uh, most of the time. So excellent stuff. Okay, went nuts on this band recently, but I've spent years streaming them. I was looking to get the box set release that's come out that has been reissued, but I decided not to pull the trigger, spend 60, 70 quid for the extras and just go for the main albums. So this is The Trees and The Garden of Jane Delaunay. Yeah, wonderful, as they coin it, acid folk, but it's just, again, it's just a great album in its own right. This is the first one, which I probably prefer. Yeah, just the beautiful ethereal balladry of the title track, Garden of Jane Delaunay, is fantastic. Nothing Special is wonderful. Version they do, She Moves Through the Fair, is fantastic, but there's not really a bad moment on this record, and deservedly acclaimed. So this is also the follow-up, On the Shore. Obviously these albums are impossibly rare to find originals of, so yeah, you know, and for 15 quid a piece, I thought, what the hell, because at the end of the day it's all about the music. Yeah, this one's a bit darker in tone. You've got a bit more emphasis on sort of traditional folk, that's kind of given the sort of Trees strange psychedelic folk treatment. But yeah, it's nonetheless beguiling and interesting, and yeah, well worth checking out, although I'm sure a lot of you are all well aware of them and probably have them anyway. So okay, so the last two, this one is a real favorite of mine, that I've streamed a lot. Never got around to buying a copy, but this was cheap, so I picked it up. Kevin Ayers' Joy of a Toy, his debut album. I've never been a huge fan of the Soft Machine. Yeah, there's moments that I like them, but sometimes it's just a little bit too much for me. But this kind of psychedelic, crazy whimsy of and the sort of humour that Kevin Ayers gets into this is just right in my sweet spot. Along with Syd Barrett, he's doesn't get much kind of better than this, really. Joy of a Toy, wonderful. Town Feeling, Girl on a Swing is just wonderful, probably one of my favourites. And then you've got the Stop This Train, again doing it. Yeah, there's that relentless groove that's just wonderfully a wonderful listen. So yeah, fantastic stuff. Glad to finally have that in the collection. Okay, a last one of the reissues was this ridiculous reissue of Country Life. You may remember last year I picked up a copy because it was the only one of their first 5 albums that I didn't have on Roxy Music, that is, on vinyl. And I picked up a copy. Ben did warn me that it was not in the best condition. It was actually warped. So in my wisdom, I tried to iron it with a cloth, and I just left the iron on too long. I mean, it wouldn't have played properly anyway, and it was kind of making the stylus jump and so on. So I had nothing to lose. But yeah, after I played around with it, it was just completely wrecked. So there we go. And this sleeve is actually too big. It's just far too big. So yeah, and I don't know why it's an oversized sleeve, but you just cannot get it into a regular 12 by 12 sleeve. It just won't go in. So just completely ridiculous. So I've Frankensteined the album, which the pressing of the new album sounds fine. So I've just put it into the old sleeve, laminate sleeve, original sleeve, and obviously with the inner, which is fine. So yeah, but yeah, fantastic album. Just wonderful, upbeat songs. Thrill of It All I Want Is You, Out of the Blue. Wonderful Prairie Rose, finishing with obviously a real Roxy favourite of their live set in the early days. But yeah, fantastic album. Okay, so we've got 10 minutes to whip through these. I'm hopefully going to get to show all of these before time runs out, because I say I don't really want this going on to a second video. Okay, so just very quickly, this is everything that I picked up from Ben's yesterday. So yeah, lovely original copy of the Jams final album, The Gift. Yeah, fantastic. Ghosts, Precious, Town Called Malice, fantastic Carnation. Wonderful, wonderful album. Really glad to get that, and that was pretty cheap. So, okay, this is an album I used to have on CD back in the day, and this is the first time I've actually seen it on vinyl. This is the House of Love, and this is like I think this came out after the Butterfly album, and this is kind of outtakes and sort of extra tracks, etc. But I always really enjoyed this. So yeah, Scratched Inside, D Song 89, Baby Teen. Yeah, it's really good, really great album. I saw the House of Love with my brother back in 1990, I think, when they kind of got really big after sort of splitting with the Creation label, going on to Fontana. But yeah, great band, Guy Chadwick, fantastic songwriter, great vocalist, good stuff. So glad to get that back in the collection on vinyl. Okay, not a massive fan of this band, but I always love the single off this. This is Japan, and this is Tin Drum. This is their last album from 1981-82, I think. And obviously it's got the magnificent Ghosts, which I've always loved that single, just the atmosphere of that, and that just kind of ethereal, stripped back, just wonderful eerie kind of atmosphere on that, which I never get sick of. Wonderful stuff. But yeah, not too familiar with the album, so I'll be looking forward to play that. Okay, so this is a really nice record. This is original of Barclay James Harvest's debut album from 1970. So you've got Les Holroyd, John Lees, principal songwriters. Yeah, kind of soft rock. Not a massive Barclay James Harvest fan. I always liked their album Gone to Earth, because that was one that my brother had, and I remember listening to when I was a kid. I always liked that album, and I think I had October on and one or two others, Time Honoured Ghosts. But yeah, this is just brilliant. This is great. It's a lovely UK original on Harvest. The kind of lovely textured sleeve in fantastic condition. It's got the kind of original Harvest inner. Obviously, lovely green Harvest label. Yeah, and I mean this is very kind of Lennon McCartney-ish in their kind of songwriting. Just really good songs, fabulously produced as well. And yeah, I'd never really got into their very early stuff. As I say, more listening to their kind of later 70s material. But this is well worth listening to if you've not heard. It's very different to their later material. So Yeah, good one. This is pick this one up as well, cheap. This is another copy of Volunteers. The RCA Victor UK pressing I've got of this is very, very quiet. So it's all, I don't know why, it's just mastered really, really low. So I have to really crank the volume up, and then there's kind of a lot of hiss. So I've picked this up just in case mine's maybe a bad pressing. And Ben's told me to have on approval just to see if it's any better. So yeah, I mean, obviously you all know this album. Great record. Okay, another upgrade. Pick this up. Human League Dare, classic from 1981. Obviously, Don't You Want Me? Yeah, Open Your Heart, Sound of the Crowd. Yeah, classic Human League. That was really cheap. Wonderful copy of probably my favourite Thin Lizzy album up there. Certainly with Jailbreak, which I absolutely love. This is 1979. This is Black Rose. This is a fantastic album. Got Gary Moore on guitar. Do Anything You Want to Do. Waiting for an Alibi. Beautiful ballad, Sarah, which I absolutely adore. And then the title track is fantastic as well, finishing off the album. Really, really glad to have that. I used to have a copy of this years ago, and unfortunately got purged at some stage, so glad to get that back in. Okay, next, a wonderful, really quite minty copy of their 1971 album. This is Family and Fearless. So yeah, I'm a big Family fan. Yeah, Roger Chapman. I know his vocals aren't to kind of everybody's taste, but they're a really interesting rock band. They blend a lot of kind of jazz with rock, and they're very much their own sound. Wonderful band from Leicestershire, and this is an original copy with this great die-cut sleeve. Yeah, I'm sure you've all seen that, but really pleased to pick that up. Okay, now this next one is a really interesting album. This is an album that I've never seen in the wild before, but I remember a mate of mine who was really into a lot of avant-garde music, used to play this back in the 80s. This is David Vorhaus, and this is his album Re-Entry. So this is White Noise 3 on Kaleidophon Pulse. It's Kaleidophon Production, Pulse Records. The Kaleidophon was an instrument that he developed, which was a kind of stick with bows on it that made really, really bizarre kind of sounds, like an e-bow. But yeah, I mean, he's just a keyboard synthesizer wizard. Worked with the kind of Stereophonic Workshop people back in the late 60s. You're probably most familiar with An Electric Storm, which was kind of his debut album that did along with sort of Anne Derbyshire, which is just a electronic psych classic. But yeah, the second album was done on Virgin, which White Noise 2 considered for synthesizer, which I haven't got, which I think is pretty rare. I've never seen that one. But yeah, this is a kind of conceptual space album, and it's a real roller coaster ride of trippiness. I mean, you can just tell by the sleeve kind of what you're letting yourself in for. You could almost do a video on its own just talking about this album. It's really out there, but yeah, really interesting nonetheless, and just an oral journey if ever there was one. So that's it, guys. So yeah, I'm done. So just about got in there with the 30 minutes. So I hope there was some interesting stuff there. My usual eclectic want as it is. Hope you all have a great week, and yeah, I'll catch up with you hopefully again at the weekend. Cheers, guys. All the very best. Take care. Bye-bye.